if we look at this, you can just see like this is when everything went crazy. This is when people were throwing everything they had at houses, and now this is how much inventory they have to work with. Go to, I think it was a 333% increase in listings. And then we also have number of sales has dropped from 707 to 595. I would bet that this has, like you said, Kory, a lot to do with the speculation on the interest rates, what's already happened, what is likely going to happen, and not only pushing some people out of the affordability marker, but also just people kind of taking a step back to see what's going to happen.
What's going on, everybody? Here it's Kory MacKinnon, and with another market update. I'm super glad that you're tuning in today because the market is changing so fast, and if you're not connected to the source, you're going to be missing all the micro data that you need to make great decisions. Today we have Kayla. We're going to be covering the Niagara and surrounding region, which covers a large area of cities here. I'm super excited to find out what all the little micro chasms are doing here when it comes to real estate investing and purchasing and selling it that way. So Kayla, welcome to the show here again, and looking forward to seeing your presentation today.
Awesome. Thanks, Kory. Yeah, I'm super excited to dive a little deeper into the numbers because I think that in this market, you absolutely have to make informed decisions. So I will pull up the slideshow here and we'll get going. So this is from the Niagara Realtors Association. They put out an update similar to every other one. So they just put, the trend continues towards a buyer's market in Niagara. The trend is backed by increased inventory and a reduction in number of sales month over month. Although the HPI benchmark price shows strong growth year over year, this indicator continues to fall from a record high in February of this year, said Jim Brown, and he is the president. So again, the overall composite benchmark price for the Niagara region was $795 there in May 2022. This was an increase of 22.1% compared to May 2021. The reason I thought this was a little bit interesting is because in previous presentations, I've said 36%, 42% increase. So it's getting, while still absolutely wild, it's coming down based off of obviously the prices going down, and that's shown in this graph here. So again, there's a lot of data here, but I think the most important thing from here, we can see that the prices everywhere have increased year over year, and we know that. But is the number of new listings from 2021 to 2022. We have 1247 in 2021 and 1480 in 2022. So a difference, but not a massive difference. But it's the number of sales. In 2021, we had 947, and 2022, we have 595.
Wow.
So, yes, so a bit of a drastic change.
Big time. Well, it's no doubt that, the whole horizon is changing, right? And, we're not even into, the last 15 days or even the next 15 days with these interest rate hikes. So really digging in.
Yeah, and then month over month kind of paints a similar picture. There were, there was a decrease in price, as you can see, not huge, but it's there. Number of new listings, April 2022 was 1382, May 2022 is 1480, and then we also have number of sales has dropped from 707 to 595. I would bet that this has, like you said, Kory, a lot to do with the speculation on the interest rates, what's already happened, what is likely going to happen, and not only pushing some people out of the affordability marker, but also just people kind of taking a step back to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, average days on market is staying pretty similar though too. That's interesting to see, because a lot of markets they're really starting to see days on market and how much inventory that they have. It's approaching more of a balanced market, right? So
Yeah, the average, what I'm finding is there's still some people, like some houses are still holding offers, and that is working in my opinion if you're pricing quite a bit lower. But a lot of people are pricing right where, around where it should sell, which I think is helping days on market because people are seeing the value at the list price and they're going in fairly quickly to pick that up. So I think that has, a part to play in it. And then I also don't think, like, we're seeing less houses being priced just outrageously. Like, as we came out of that December, January, February craziness, I think people in March, April were still, they were still looking for that. I would say March more, looking for those prices. Whereas now I think people are a little more in tune with what's happening. So that might be helping that as well. But yeah, year over year, they're, basically exactly the same. Though they are exactly the same as month over month. So that is interesting. So the first graph is the year over year. Again, the biggest standout to me is that the number of sales have dropped quite substantially, 37.2%. And then even month over month, like a 15.8% change decrease in sales month over month is pretty substantial. Especially when the listings have increased a bit there. So just a different way to look at the data, but it is a very interesting, interesting lay of the land for Niagara right now.
Yeah, people can be pickier, right? They have options
Yep.
again, and they can be a little bit more selective, and maybe they're even going to hold it a little bit more to see what goes on, right? We're into the summer months now too. So if they haven't found their school district, they either want to get into it, or I guess they'll deal with it in the fall possibly as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this has been kind of echoed throughout the videos, but it's nice because you can actually, you'll get a house with a home inspection, with a financing clause, with, a sale of property, which is something that was just basically unheard of, previous, if they were holding offers and all that type of thing. So it is I think a nice break for buyers. And I mean, if you're selling, in most cases you're buying, I would say, unless you're selling off an investment property. So it gives them a chance on the other side as well. Just to do a bit of a deeper dive into the numbers. So I personally think this gives a much clearer picture of what's happened or is happening because it's city specific. So the Niagara region as a whole is that gray line here. And you can see that's not a huge dip. It's only, the whole Niagara region has only decreased by 3.5% since its peak. But you can see there's a few more drastic drops in there.
Yeah, Thorold's looking a bit like Bitcoin lately. So what's going on with Thorold here?
Thorold's just such a small market. I mean, there's only 23,000 people that live in Thorold, so there's not a ton of houses here. So it can look a little crazy month over month. There was a few really, really expensive new builds that were sold in that time as well. So I have a feeling that really jacked up the price, but there's just not a huge pool of what's being sold. So St. Catharines is this red line. So St. Catharines has seen a almost 11% decrease in price. Niagara Falls did like a weird thing, fell, went back up, fell again. So Niagara Falls is about 10.5% decrease. And Thorold, if you're looking at this crazy number up here, has actually seen a 21.23% decrease, but I don't think that's reflective of Thorold or the market in Thorold. I think it was just really tuned in on what houses sold that month.
Yes.
And then to get into some of the smaller, and then Welland's in here as well. So you can see kind of the volatility in these smaller markets is really all over the place. So Port Colborne is the yellow, and then Fort Erie is the bluish greenish color. The thing with these markets specifically, like you're dealing with luxury houses that have a ton of land or cheap houses in the city because they're further out. So if you're an investor and you're looking at this and you're going, Fort Erie for, $750,000, that seems outrageous. It's because of these, it also pulls in the outliers. So you're getting the very lowest and the very highest. But to point that out, so Welland hasn't felt quite what the rest of them have. So that's only looking at about a 6% decrease in price. And then Fort Erie is about 10.5, and Port Colborne is actually only 3 because it actually did like it went up again here. And then you can kind of see that these don't really follow. Welland does a bit follow like the Niagara trajectory, whereas Fort Erie and Port Colborne are just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, that's why it's important to get, you know, the information from your realtor like yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? If someone really wants to go buy in Fort Erie, they should know what the outliers were, what the acreages were, what the waterfront stuff was.
Yeah.
You know, if you're just looking for, you know, really good comps, of course they're probably going to be a little bit different than the numbers and the charts here and whatnot, right? And there's definitely something to be said that there's value and opportunity in the market right now.
Absolutely. And I think those markets obviously being further out, I think less investors end up that far out. So if you're looking for a deal or you're a first time investor, I think that both of those markets are fantastic for that. And it's still an area where you can get like a small single family that might still work numbers wise. So it offers a bunch of different opportunity where maybe the bigger cities don't. And then I mean, Welland, investor paradise. So I like the trajectory of that doesn't really scare me all that much. I mean, it's been a slight dip and that doesn't really surprise me either, given everything that's happening in Welland, and there's many developments happening in Welland, and we'll actually talk about one. I wanted to show Niagara investors often obviously focus on the bigger cities and maybe not so much these guys because they are more expensive, but I think as Airbnb and Airbnb arbitrage become more and more popular, these markets get a little more desirable because there are a lot of wineries, amongst other things, but a lot of wineries kind of sprinkled in them. But again, a big mixed bag of houses. Like you have your luxury homes, you have, you know, your standard family homes. They are more expensive markets. But I think, again, you can kind of see that volatility because there's a small sample size in each of these markets and a vast array of houses.
Yes.
And also outperforming Niagara.
You know, when you go to list one of these properties, it's almost like, well, how do we come up with the list price just because the property is so unique or nothing like it's ever been sold? So they are interesting price points.
Yeah, and you know, the numbers, like you can see Fonthill Pelham's actually gone up a bit. West Lincoln was way up, went down, and is on its way up. And then Grimsby really didn't feel much of a hit whatsoever. It's a very slight decrease. And these are outperforming Niagara as a whole, obviously, just because they are more luxury, family-oriented markets. And then I also, like, I would say arguably the most luxury in the Niagara region would be Niagara on the Lake. And as you can see, it's defying all odds and increasing in price.
Well, it's that time of the year, right? It's almost like, you know, when do you want to buy one of these? You know, it's a cottage or a motorcycle or a sports car. I mean, you want to buy it at the beginning of the summer so you get to enjoy it, and you're probably going to pay a premium for it now versus if you bought it in the fall. So
yes, a lot of these are waterfront that have recently sold. I'm listing one, so I'm keeping kind of finger on the pulse, especially for that. And they obviously show, like you just said, so much better in the summer when you can actually see the water. It's not frozen. You can see Toronto from your backyard. It's really cool. So yeah, it just was an interesting outlier of the market. And again, very small market. You can see it's done up when everyone else was like way high, they were actually down. So exactly what you're saying. These are more appealing homes to buy when they're in their more appealing state in the summer. So any questions about that, Kory?
no, I'm just looking at if somebody would have wanted to buy it Niagara on the Lake, my gosh, you could have got a $400,000 discount by buying it closer to Christmas.
Yes, and this actually kind of tracks for every year. I took a look a few years back, and it seems to be, and I mean that's just the seasonality of the market. But if you're looking luxury, maybe buying luxury in the winter is the way to go, especially if it's waterfront. So yeah, just an interesting way to look at the numbers differently than as a whole, because I think this paints a much clearer picture of what's happening in every municipality and city versus, you know, if we just looked at this, we'd have no idea what, you know, Welland and no idea what Niagara on the Lake was doing, because it doesn't paint the same picture as the two.
Yes.
All right, and then this is really just for visual purposes. We hear about, you know, weeks of inventory, months of inventory, all that good stuff. If for reference, Niagara is sitting at about 12 weeks. But if we look at this, you can just see like, this is when everything went crazy. This is when people were throwing everything they had at houses, and now this is how much inventory they have to work with. So much more.
Kidding,
It
eh?
is, yeah, it's about I think it was a 333% increase in listings. So
That's massive.
yeah,
That is huge, and that's what we're seeing in a lot of markets. Maybe
yeah.
not as much, but you guys have definitely had a lot more inventory come on the market, which I think the market needed it.
Yeah.
I don't think you enjoy, clients not being able to buy properties when they're putting in earnest offers and doing things that they probably wouldn't do otherwise, right? Like no conditions and different things of that nature. But now it's people aren't going to be trapped by having to be an expert in that moment and having to offer over asking, no conditions.
Yes.
All those different things.
Yeah, and we've seen, and like it also gives time, like your appraisal can come in before, before your firm. Like it offers a lot of safety nets that no one had before. So exactly to your point, like it does make the buying process a lot easier, in my opinion. The selling, obviously, a house now takes strategy, staging, professional photography, like everything. We were doing that the whole time, and we will continue to do that. But like you could list a house bare bones before, and it would sell. There was no doubt. But now it's, it's putting that extra effort into it to make sure that it does. And pricing right now is very, very, very important. But anyways, I just wanted to show this because I know some people prefer visual. This really seals the deal that there are a bunch more listings out there. And then I just wanted to move on to some development news. So I like to do this. I think it's important for people to know what's going on a larger scale in the Niagara region. I'm going to start with this one. So I had talked about this before. There were bids put out for, so it's actually 62 hectares of land. The successful builder was Live Communities. That's announced. I didn't just spill a secret. But they're building 38 to 4,500 res units.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, so it's between, the land came from Welland and Thorold. It was all along the canal, which is, I guess this is what they're planning it might look like. And obviously anticipating that people will be using the water. But yeah, so they're gonna do playgrounds, splash pads, my favorite, which is like a pedestrian street for a market, very like European style. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention that one, if you're already buying in these areas, this is sure to raise the value because they're dumping obviously a ton of money into it. And also builders don't put boots to the ground where they haven't done a ton of research.
When any idea on when that's going to get started?
So
Obviously,
they don't
have
have
a lot of red tape to get through still, but
yes, so I don't think they have a date yet. But so the bids were just, I think, 2 months ago. They were the successful builder. So I think we'll start to information will start to flow out now that they've figured out who's going to be doing it. And quite a big development for the builder. So that's great for them as well. And then to build off of that, building permits valued at more than 55 million in construction issued in Welland to date. So Welland has outperformed itself every year, basically with permit issuing. This year they are also on track to do that. Keep in mind that the beginning of the year is the slowest for permits just for weather. A lot of big builders aren't going to build in January because they can't. But it basically just looks good for this year and no slowing down in Welland. So I just wanted to point that out for all the Welland investors, and I know there are plenty of them.
I wonder what the numbers would look like if they actually indexed it for inflation. Is it kind of the same number of permits, or is the value just looking bigger because it's costing more to build things these days too? So that would be interesting to know.
Yeah, I would guess probably a little bit of A and a little bit of B. In that actual, so this is the link to where these come from. It actually goes into detail on like, this is from conversions and this is from builders building like large projects. So it does go into a bit more detail if anyone's interested. That is the link down there. And then moving on to this guy. So Brock acquires Schwann Parkway site, enabling expansion of the on-campus classroom and research space. So where Brock is, if everyone's not familiar, it's kind of tucked into a corner of an area, and then surrounding that is mostly commercial spaces, some like industrial buildings as well. But Brock acquiring this means that they're anticipating obviously substantial growth, because this is going to move workers out of the building into this part to make room for more classrooms, research, etc. So it's great on Brock's front because this means for expansion, but it also means big things for the surrounding cities. So St. Catharines, Thorold, they took 8 acres from Enbridge, but Enbridge will stay, which means there's no high-paying jobs leaving the area. They're just doing a leaseback situation. And the vice president for Brock said, like, it's a strategic investment for Brock as we position, ourselves for substantial growth. So I think that this is very important for the Thorold St. Catharines investors.
Oh, big time. I mean, it's hard to ignore the student population when you're looking at rentals, and it may not be for everybody as an investor, but I've done some student rentals before. They've always performed very, very well. A little bit more management that you have to do with a student rental, but it obviously shows that Brock is literally putting their flag in the ground saying, hey, we believe that students are going to be, back, on campus, and that's not changing anytime soon. We expect more students to be coming here. So that's excellent. I know they just keep coming more and more into their own.
Yeah, and I think it sets a precedent for Brock. Just like, I went to McMaster, I also went to Brock, but McMaster doesn't have a ton of room to grow, so they've grown in other areas of Hamilton. Brock has a ton of space there. Like, Brock actually donated, I'll just move to the next slide. Brock donated the land for this facility. That's why they are a part owner of it. There's four different parties that own it, but Brock has a lot of land and a lot of space. So I suspect that over the next, several years, that we'll just see them expand and expand more. To this.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Canada Games, for people that don't know what the Canada Games are, they're basically national level events for people under the age of 20. I was able to participate in the sport of weightlifting way back in 1999, and that was out in Alberta. But it gets, whoever wins the bid, they typically want to build these legacy buildings, and I think it's awesome because now there's going to be national level athletes that get to train there year round, and it's just going to attract, more people maybe out of like the GTA to some of these other smaller cities to be able to train and not have to worry about high cost of rents and all these other things, right? So it's a fantastic, thousands of people are going to be coming to the city because of this, and it'll just have like a lot of boost to the local tourism for sure. I know you're mentioning your Airbnb has been, or just people that have Airbnbs are going to be booked up because, man, as soon as the hotels book up, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yes. So again, there's a video that we had done previously on the Canadian Real Estate Channel where I'm out front of the building. It is very windy, but you can still kind of get a feel for it in the back. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous building. It's very modern. It was designed by he's very well known in the Niagara region. But so this building specifically will have 2 ice pads, a parasport gymnasium with 4 courts, health and well-being center, and a 200-meter indoor track. Outside, there'll be 6 beach volleyball courts, cycling center, outdoor storage area, and a track and field facility, which has the full 400-meter track, and then areas for all track and field disciplines. So it's this building, but it's also Canada Games Park. So behind the building, there's a large area where all of this other stuff is going to go. Part of the agreement is that Brock has access to this building. So this, I think, will also be another pull for athletes to go to Brock. Brock doesn't have a football team, so they're kind of lacking in that regard. But I think with this, it'll push a lot of other athletes from other sports to come. And it's just such a nice facility. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. I can't stress enough if people are in the area to pop by and enjoy the games for all that they are. The sponsors are super cool. There's so much going on. There's a bunch of different events. And Kory, I mean, you were in them, so you can speak to that. It's a lot of hoopla around it. Like, the Niagara region's very excited about this. So it's a big deal out here. And I think it is whoever gets the bid. And this has been pushed off for 2 years. So they've had extra time to plan.
Yes. Well, it's obviously worth the hoopla. These people train for a long time. I know I started training at the age of 12, and I went when I was 19. So this is more than just provincials. This is like national level. So for some people, this will maybe be the biggest event they ever go to.
Right.
And I think it's awesome. I know when I went, it was
really cool.
At least 2,000 athletes, and then all the parents and all the refs and all the coaches, and it's a big deal because now you're combining however many sports, whether it's 10 or 20 or 30 sports all in one city, all for one. It really is like a junior Olympics. So
yeah, it's really cool. And to the Airbnb thing, like we only launched the one that's close by to this facility 2 weeks ago, and we're like basically booked for the entire summer. So
wow, that's awesome.
yeah,
So if
lots
people are
of,
looking for a trend, gang, there's a reason
yeah.
why you watch these videos. Even if you can short-term rent out your property just for a month, it may be worth it to go and, I don't know, go stay at the cottage, go to a different city, but you can trust that there's a high demand. It's literally spiking. It'll look like that graph of like the
Yeah.
number of properties coming on inventory. You know, things like this they need places to stay for sure.
Yeah,
So
and the hotels are booked. We know that from like our friends trying to stay when we got married, and the cheapest one that wasn't booked was $458. So for just a regular hotel room. So definitely some opportunity there, and super creative. If you know, if you live here and you can get away for a month, you have a cottage. Like I know people that Airbnb their houses, and a lot of the cities actually require it to be your residence first. So if you're in that position, that's a very, very good idea.
I'm kidding. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's the presentation, Kory. Thanks so much.
No worries. I mean, what are you seeing as a realtor? Like any stories from the field of just, you know, people looking to buy and how the market's been shifting for them, or even people looking to sell and they've really had to level up their game or be okay with maybe fewer offers, or maybe do pull down the listing and relist it? I mean, what are you seeing as a realtor from yourself and in your brokerage, on both sides, from buyers and sellers?
Yeah, so I'll use actually my own examples because I was at a listing that I'm listing in a few weeks. Yesterday, we had originally met in like I think it was January, February, when things were crazy. And they were saying no staging, like we're not going to do anything, we're just going to sell it. So our conversation yesterday looked very different. We are staging, we're doing a few small upgrades just to make sure that it poises itself well in the market, because again, if you're not pricing right, obviously very important, but if you're not standing out in that price bracket as well, I think that's where we're seeing some issues. Another thing on the sales side, any house that's going to require private funding, I think is sitting longer, because obviously private funding, the lenders have pulled back as well. So I think that those are becoming a little more difficult to sell if it is going to require private lending. And then on the other side, on the buy side, it's been kind of like a breath of fresh air, like especially all the investors that I'm working with, like they're able to get a home inspection. We're watching, like just the other day, we helped worked with some investors. They bought a house that we actually just watched the price kind of over, I think, a month drop and drop and drop till it got up to a point where it was like a really, really great deal. And it's just making sure that you're, the realtor that you work with, or if you're like, us as well, is just making sure that we're watching those properties, watching the price decreases, because those are happening more and more frequently, or they're relisting, but they're relisting where it should be priced. So I think there's a ton of opportunity right now. Again, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what's going to happen going forward, but if you're in this long term, these prices make a lot of sense, especially for the people doing the conversions and that type of thing, where they will cash flow. And they're stress testing themselves at higher interest rates to make sure that even if it continues to climb, that they're still going to be cash flowing, and the property is still going to be covering itself.
Yes, no, I know we're going to be going into some challenging times here for the next couple of years, but it's not a time to totally remove yourself as a real estate investor. And I heard a good quote the other day that the smart money comes out during these, I'm going to say, recessionary times. We may go into a recession, we may not. We might actually kind of be in a form of one already, but if you have smart money and want to put it to work, there's still great opportunities out there. And a lot of people who were kind of clouding the waters have now gone and said, okay, I'm going to go maybe play the stock market or whatever, and I'm not going to be doing real estate. Whereas the people like myself and yourself who've been doing this for a long time, we're looking for these opportunities. It's important to be waking up every day and looking at the data and working with a realtor like yourself who's all over this stuff, looking for opportunities for their clients so that you guys know when to pull the trigger.
And I think too, there's quite a few people that are selling their multis for different reasons. So if people are looking to get into the multi space, I also feel like the landlord or the owner, like a lot of them more so than before, are coming vacant. which I think is an opportunity, house hacking or that type of thing. So I do think that there's opportunity if people are, you know, willing to kind of go with whatever's going to happen. And again, I think if you're looking to do some short-term holds, maybe now's not the best time, unless your numbers are obviously fantastic. But for long-term holds, I still do believe that there is opportunity out there, just like you said. The people that are, you know, have been waiting and looking every day, I think that there'll be some pretty sweet deals coming up. So
yeah, if they have access to cheap money, or
yep.
someone in their network has access to cheap money, that these deals make sense. I know, you know, whenever you can look at what would it cost me to rebuild this versus what am I buying it for? I mean, it makes so much sense to be buying these multis, you know, off, you know, at this period of time for sure. So it's definitely a breath of fresh air. So cool.
Well, awesome. Thanks so much, Kory.
No worries, everybody. So again, it was awesome spending time with Kayla here. And how can they find you? How can they follow you? What's the best way to stay in touch if they are curious about short-term rentals, conversions, listing a property, selling a property?
Yeah, so all the information is actually below. You can book a call in the Calendly, follow me on Instagram, DM me. Happy to chat real estate anytime. But yeah, all the information will be below the video.
Excellent, everybody. And for people that are looking to follow me here, I'm pretty easy to find as well. Just go look up Kory MacKinnon on Instagram, on my website as well. And also we've started a YouTube channel. So we've had a YouTube channel for a few months right now. Highly recommend that you jump over. I think the link will be down below as well. We post content every single week about what's happening in real estate as well. We are more, not necessarily like, I love doing these catch-ups with realtors because then I get a great sense of what things are doing all over the place. But, you know, I'm more still encouraging people to take action, even though, you know, these can be unforeseen times. But, you know, we've had it pretty darn good for the past couple of years, and this is where people have to be more creative, a little bit smarter. So if you want to get some information there, by all means, you know, jump on over to our channel. Until next time, there, friends, until the next Realtor Review, I'm looking forward to staying in touch with everybody, and, you know, we'll catch you on the next one.